You could have a nice Flash website, but it just wouldn't be successful. So most of the things that we have today, I know that SEOs, myself particularly, were keen proponents of cascading style sheets because it made the page leaner. It moved most of the code that wasn't doing anything to do with meaning, difference between style and substance. It moved the style off, where the search engine wasn't bothered by it. It ignored the separate style sheet. That you distill the meaning down. But one thing that's always amused me about CSS, you sometimes get the CSS experts sort of climbing all over the SEOs and forgetting that kind of thing and getting carried away. And it's one thing I've said to them over the years. A lot of them have forgotten that one of the first uses of CSS was to override designers. Zeldman, of course, an expert, one of the first things he produced was a series of tools of your own style sheets to override designers so that you could increase the size of the fonts, so that you could increase the readability by changing the colors. CSS was to override designers originally, and later on people really started to play with CSS and get beautiful things. Zen Gardens were great examples early on. But SEO has driven a hell of a lot of design for the better.
Yeah, that's interesting. Your comment about CSS or original use. I had forgotten about that. It was, yeah, that was a sneak attack.
It was exceptionally popular for exactly those tricks. How to hack other people's websites into usefulness through CSS, specifying your own sheets. And I think it's something that people generally have forgotten today, is that people may be using their own cascading style sheets, especially if they have problems with small text or particular colors, color blindness. Having your own CSS sheet that overrides anything that the designer's done wrong, yeah, don't assume that your CSS is being seen by all your users.
Interesting.
Yeah, no, that's the thing now with browser compatibility. Whenever you're into design, I don't notice it as much as back in the day, if you will, because back then we were also using Netscape.
Do you remember those? You'd go to a site. This site is designed for Netscape.
Right. It's best viewed by.
It's going to look awful. Yeah.
Or best viewed in Internet Explorer. Oh my God.
Right. Are we aging ourselves?
Exactly.
Anything that's best viewed in Internet Explorer probably isn't worth viewing, in my opinion. But
hey, come on, man! I used to work in the edit for Netscape. It was great to learn HTML. I mean, that's how I learned HTML, is through Netscape capabilities. There were no classes or geek rooms.
I literally downloaded the RFCs and the official documents and proposals and learned it that way from the bottom up.
Sure.
So I could see the stuff that wasn't commonly in use, because that's where you find the stuff that are the tricks nobody's using. Some of the things that people didn't know where the money was.
Right, and that's why I loved using Flash, because I didn't need to learn HTML. Any hovers for buttons or drop downs, Flash took care of that. But as we all know, Flash was horrible. Even though it was a great application to use, it was horrible for search and visibility. But yeah, so we're talking some history here. So search has changed. You're working now independently, and we were also discussing earlier, how has search changed as far as a marketing aspect? How are you marketing different because of search?
Massively. I mean, actually, a lot of SEO hasn't changed as much as people think. The exact techniques that you'll use be that, it's the difference between painting with a paintbrush and a roller. We used to paintbrush, now we use a roller. But the painting itself, the selection of colours, that kind of thing, hasn't really changed. What we always used to say about SEO in terms of headings, still important. URLs, nice and short and meaningful, still important, usability-wise and for SEO. Not too deep in structure. still important. The structure itself has some meaning semantically. Again, still important. The technical aspects of the site are right. Still important, still all there. The difference that Google brought was having to worry about links much more. Alta Vista had used them a bit. They first really came in sort of, I think it was 98. A whole load of people's doorway pages. Back then, optimized
Oh, yeah, doorway pages.
As a landing page. But usually they weren't connected on the navigation. Of course, you didn't want people going from the site to the landing page. The landing page was a funnel to your site. And what Alta Vista introduced was the thing checking that these things were in your navigation. If they weren't, they would drop from the index. It wasn't used for anything else. There was no ranking bonus to having a link to it, but if it didn't have a link, it was dropped. Hundreds of SEOs lost their doorway pages. Big hoo-ha, big as a penguin or panda in its time. We spotted what the problem was with the links, and the next thing was hallway pages. Do you remember those? That was just a page with links to all of your doorway pages. Brett Tabke, who'd started Search Engine World, the original name for Webmaster World, that domain name didn't get dropped for a while. It belonged to somebody else. Over on Search Engine World, had a buddy links program. What for other people's? And you have one of your links to somebody else's hallway page, and that link ring went around. Link tricks were around even back then, and the difference is between the great SEOs and the ones who struggle is that people like Brett Tabke think these things up. They know that what they need is the links, and they think of a shortcut, but they're not dependent on the shortcut. I think there's too many SEOs who read everything from a blog, and they only get the tactic of the day. They don't understand the meaning behind it. They don't understand what they're really aiming for. It's what I spoke of years ago. They get obsessed. There's a link in a chain, and they're looking at that link instead of understanding what the chain is pulling.
Which exactly, the relevance, the intent, which I think Google, because Google has gotten so much more sophisticated, I like Google. A lot of things they do, I don't, but that's not for this conversation. But what they're doing is right. It's just difficult because you are dealing with SEO companies that are still pushing packages of sign up to 25 directories a month, push 50 press releases a month, 2 articles, and so we're still getting the crap hat. I don't know that I'd call it black hat. It's crap hat SEO. And people don't know what works. If they take the time to test and understand, it's still the same thing as it was, in traditional marketing. Engage the readers, find out what they want, and give it to them. Make sure you're accessible. If you're selling a product, make sure people can contact you, whether it's to give you great reviews or to say you suck. Whatever. Have that community. Which is, unfortunately, a lot of companies, especially SEO companies, forget.
Well, I remember, I'm sure Ammon does as well, back in the old days of web rings. In those days, relationships were everything, Sure, there were those sites that just went out to try to stockpile as many links as they could, regardless of what or where, but the majority of them were actually building relationships. They were trying to share something that was interesting. It might or might not be relevant to their own site. Some of them were eclectic collections of you name it, but they were building relationships. And then we got away from that. And now finally people are starting to wake up again, thanks to, I feel, thanks to Google in great part, with the relevance requirements for being found in search. They're finally starting to realize that relationships have value. And now as authority is going to become more of a factor in being able to establish any entity with a presence, I think it's going to come back to a prominent position. But that started out with web rings, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I I think we're coming up to the first bit of homework for every SEO watching this. There's a man called John Kleinberg, and if you don't know who he is, you need to. This is the grandfather of information retrieval in a lot of ways. He's one of the main architects behind the whole idea of hubs and authorities with IBM's Clever project. Now, IBM funded this amazing project that calculated hubs to detect links on the other and backwards and forwards. A hub is a page like Yahoo, the directory back then. It links to lots of things on a topic. It's not itself necessarily a great information resource. You might not get the answers there, but it can tell you everyone who does have the answers, and it can guide you in lots of different directions into particular subgroups of a topic you're interested in. So when you're just getting to grips with the topic, a hub is just a perfect resource. In modern search, I'd say that hubs answer those short queries. Where you've got a 1 or 2 word query, you really want a hub site most of the time. You want something that gives you a broad overview and introduces you to lots of subtopics on it, because you haven't yet found quite what you're looking for. Say you were looking up pensions, you definitely want a hub kind of site on pensions. You're not ready to sign up and buy one.
Well, unfortunately, using hub sites, though, requires that you actually think and work, and unfortunately, it seems like the vast majority of Internet users are very content to let Google do the thinking and working on their behalf, so they don't have to engage their brain. They like the knowledge engine.
The corollary to the hub was the authority. Now, the authority he's the expert. He really knows this one piece of his topic very, very well. It may not link very far, but this guy, that's where the answers are. Maybe not the answers you need this time, but there's answers there. The hub links all of those together, and Kleinberg's work used this and algorithmically processed hubs and authorities. And his work there, the IBM Clever project, is what started Google. Most of Google's early research cites. They couldn't work out linking on the fly. It took them weeks to calculate what PageRank had to do very, very quickly in days. And in the early days, Google was calculating PageRank in days, not in minutes. We've had something that we used to call Everflux for a long, long time now, which is where Google, it calculates it in the background in different data centers, and it kind of, at any one given time, it's guesstimating based on data that is updating in the background as it goes along. I don't believe that PageRank even now is calculated on the fly.
Sure, I think a lot of the data centers would take I remember when they were saying 2 weeks for it to hit this data center, and I'm thinking, what is this, snail mail? I mean, now in retrospect, when you think back to those times, so what do you think about? I mean, you're in Europe, so has Google caught up in the UK as it has here? I mean, is Knowledge Graph real popular? Is author tags real popular? hreflangs real? I mean, are those discussions that are happening in the SEO community over there, or?
Oh, very much so. The difference between the SEO communities in the US and the UK are negligible these days.
Yeah.
There's so much cross-pollination anyway. So, you've got companies like Distilled that span both sides of the Atlantic anyway. You've had a lot of American companies buy up smaller UK companies here. You've got some UK companies that have got offices in the US. And, of course, you've got people like me who've inspired a few of the well-known SEOs over there. So it goes backwards and forwards. I must admit, I've put my little UK flag down in the corner because for years people didn't realise I was in the UK. They thought if you're a famous SEO, you must be American.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I noticed your.
He lived 2 years down the road. He lived 2 miles down the road from me, and he thought I was in the US.
Yeah. No, I was reading your testimonials. I mean, from Rand Fishkin to Jill Whalen to Ralph Tegmeyer, you're all over the globe. So, but yeah, I was kind of surprised. I thought you were in Canada. until I dropped, I dropped the link and took a look at where you originated from.